The Holy Apostle Paul, in his letter to Galatians, he talks about the gifts of the Holy Spirit: love, joy, peace, gentleness, goodness, faithfulness. And he also talks about temperance, воздержание, I think that's compatare. I think that's what it means, temperance. Some people say self-control. Substitute that word. These gifts, but the greatest gift from the Holy Spirit is love. And I want to talk about love because I think sometimes we have a misunderstanding about what love really is. I think we have to start and say that God is love. And as we are made in the image of God, love is a part of our character. That may not be obvious, and it may be not obvious to you either, or to me, in the way we feel sometimes, but love is a part of our property. It's what we are made. We're made in the image of God, therefore we have love. But unfortunately, the love that we express generally is not divine love. In the gifts of the Holy Spirit, the Apostle uses the word agape for love. In the secular world, the word for love is eros. And so the secular society, and especially Hollywood, have hijacked the word eros to produce erotica. So when we think of eros, we think of something erotic, something sexual, something actually evil. But in fact, our day-to-day love tends to be eros. This is not a sin, because eros leads to agape. Agape is divine love. And we know today that people are very much using the word love and peace as a slogan. We want peace. Everybody must love each other, and you can't criticize anybody as you're not loving. This is not true love. This is eros. Also, it is misguided. Now, as Orthodox Christians, when we love somebody spiritually, the love that we have bursts, explodes, and affects the other person. This is agape. This is true divine love, and it explodes because it's very, very powerful. And I think we do not understand the power of love. Some of the fathers say that love, in that sense, spiritual love, is dangerous. It's like overloading a circuit in a house or a machine in which you overload the electricity. What happens to the machine? It breaks down. And so the same for love, divine love. When we approach another person or show this love, we have to be careful because it can be dangerous and we can actually overload the circuits. Just think about this for a moment. God's love, God is love, but love is not God. God is love, but love is not God, because the love that is not God is eros. It is the love for things in this world. And so we misuse it. It can in fact be very destructive. An example, let me just, I just want to just look at a quote here I have. Because we have this in our souls, our essence of our souls is very beautiful. And I want to repeat this time and time again, is that our souls are beautiful. They are pure. We're not talking about our minds, and we're not talking about this disconnect that's in us, but the soul that God has created is beautiful and pure. When some saints, or let's say ascetics, have struggled and they have acquired love of God, there is a danger there as well, because when one realizes the beauty of one's soul, one can actually fall in love with oneself. You know the story of Narcissus, the Greek story, the young man who fell in love with his reflection in the pool and was fixed forever there. So we have this concept, condition of narcissism. But you know, it's if we want to exercise love, we have to understand that it must be focused on God. Everything we do should be focused on God. Let's go back to the gifts of the Holy Spirit, the gifts of love, peace, joy, kindness, self-control. All these things are important, but they have no meaning unless it is on the path to God. Everything we should do should be for the love of God. And the fathers say that even in economical difficulties, the reason that we have these problems is because we do not love God. If we have difficulties in our relationships, in marriage or friends or in work, it's because we do not love God. When we start focusing our attention on what I do, I want to do it because I love God, then these things will not be a problem. And in fact, the virtues, the gifts of the Holy Spirit will become natural. It's the focus on God that is important. It takes an enormous effort to do it. All the energy that we have in our soul to do this, to love God. Loving God, how do you start? Well, the first thing you do, you start with trust. If you love somebody, you trust them. If we love God, we trust God. That everything that happens to us is under God's guidance. And that includes the good and the bad, the unpleasant situations. Through those, St. Isaac, the Syrian says that when we die and when we stand at the judgment, we'll thank God for all the difficulties we had in this life, because that's what brought us to God. So these things are good for us, these difficulties, if we turn to look at God. Another gift that we have of the Holy Spirit, a gift it's from the Holy Spirit, in our soul is anger. Anger is a gift from God. It's given to the soul to fight evil. But what do we do with anger? We use it against people.
Exactly.
And against God. But anger is a part of our soul. It's a part of our, again, a property, part of our character. Love, anger. And so if you're angry occasionally, this is not a sin. It becomes a sin when anger becomes an obsession. So you're angry about everything, and it takes possession of you. That is the sin, not being angry, because it's a part of your soul. All these things God has given us as gift, but we misuse them because we do not focus on the giver. And this is the important thing. When we exercise love, even agape love, we have to be careful that it's not mixed with egotistical passions. I love somebody because I want something.
Money.
Yes, there's a love of money. It affects all of us. I don't think there's any exceptions. There's love of intellect. We're very fond of our intellect, how wonderful we are in minds. Some people are obviously have brilliant minds. But this becomes erotic love. It's Eros. It's not love for God. It's love for an object, for this secular world. So we have to. Actually, I have a note here, which there was a German author and poet, Gerhard Hauptmann. You may have heard of him. He won the Nobel Prize in 1912. I've been doing a lot of research, obviously, on this one, Wikipedia. But I had to study him for when I was doing some advanced German, which I studied years ago when I was a young lad. And in that novel, which I can't remember the title, it's terrible, I just can't remember it, but in it, what struck me was that he abandons his wife for a friend that he knew as a student. And she says, and he complains, he says, your love has killed me. And the theme of the book is that she's a very devoted wife and with the children, and he's always discontent, he's sort of unsettled. full of turmoil. And so he accuses her of killing him through her love. Now, I don't want to analyse that, but this came to mind, but maybe you can think about that one. So what is the love? The love that we have. One of the most powerful forms of love is called motherhood. If you're a mother, you have a very special love for your children. And even on the animal, mothers are very protective. You go near a hen that's got chicks, she will attack you. This is a natural instinct that God has given, that this is correct love. How do we use that love in marriage? Because very often marriage is egotistical. We don't marry somebody because for pleasure. There is pleasure in marriage, but that should not be the reason. If we want to choose a partner, we need to look for a person. A man should not look for a woman, and a woman should not look for a man, but should look for a person. Because when you start looking for a man or for a woman, you've already got your plan, you've already got your ideas ready, what you expect. The ideal person, which does not exist, of course. Well, not on this earth, in the next life, yes. And this is misguided love. Love that you may get something out of it. And this is why I think a lot of relationships break down. I remember Archbishop Damaskinos, I was talking to him, he had, every month he had to meet and have a divorce court, because so many of the Greeks were getting divorced. Which is tragic. It's terrible, because people enter into marriage with not knowing what it's about. Entering marriage with demands. And the love in that relationship is usually Eros. Now that's not bad, but it's a fact that can't be the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal is Agape, because when you marry somebody, you're saying, I want you to share with me on the path to salvation. You have to lose our egotistical ideas, philosophies, desires, to share with somebody else. Is this person, can I live with this person for salvation? Not can I live with them because they're going to, give me pleasure physically or financially. People do marry for money. Still happens. It's because you want to find somebody that you can share your life for salvation. The fathers say that love is the greatest virtue, but there is something greater than love. What's that? Does anybody know? What can be greater than love if that's the greatest virtue? The answer is discernment. Because without discernment, you will misuse the love. Even if it's agape love, divine love, it can be misused. St. Isaac the Syrian tells the story of, this is a parable, all right, it's not a true story, that you're walking along and you see somebody in the river and they're drowning, and you want to, out of love, you want to help them. So what do? You give them your hand. The danger is that they would drag you into the river, and both of you would drown. St. Isaac says this is not, you have to have discernment in how you use love. So he says what you do is you give them your stick, and they can take that, and maybe that's, you can pull them out. And if you can't, well then they take the stick with them. Discernment. What is discernment in Russian? Anna?
Разумение, развлечение, рассуждение, может быть, рассуждение.
What is it?
Рассуждение.
Рассуждение. We have to have discernment, otherwise this love is misused. And discernment channels love in a healthy direction. So how can one obtain discernment? It's very simple.
It looks like simple.
What is it? Yeah.
Yeah. See, Father, you say we have to practice the love, which is coming from God.
Yeah.
It's easy. But what about we have to practice the anger too? To be angry to someone? To practice?
If you like.
That is dangerous.
I think this is called heckling, actually, on talks. To get discernment is to seek advice. Don't do something without a blessing. That doesn't mean a priest. It means seek advice from a friend. Don't do things on your own. How much misguided love? I've lots of examples, which I don't want to talk about now, of people say, oh, I need to help that, and say, don't do it. Oh, but they can't help it, so they do, and then both of them end up with problems. Happens all the time. It happens very often with male and female, because a man sees a woman that's needs help, and that relationship is not, because the man is still has personal desires, has passion, and meets somebody else to help. I'm talking about married man, of course. This is not just necessarily single couples. We don't know, in the person who helped has problems and passions, and so this love, which is there initially, begins to create problems. You need to seek advice. Beginners in the spiritual life tend to be overzealous. They want to do everything that's right because they think that's the way they can love. This is wrong. Again, advice, always follow advice. There's Elder John of Valam, and it says, do not trust yourself this side of the grave.